Trial of Ashley Benefield, it is wrapped up, and she has been found guilty of manslaughter, not second degree. It was a lesser charge that she was found guilty on after the jury had a chance to hear all avenues of this case and what avenues they went down. Oh my gosh, we learned a whole lot more about Doug and herself. Joining me to discuss, Eric Faddis, defense attorney. Eric, what's your reaction to the verdict here in this case?
Yeah, like you said, that there was a lot that was revealed in this trial that not everyone knew about before in terms of Ashley's claims against Doug, prior domestic violence, that kind of thing. And as the trial went on, I sort of began to lend more credence to those domestic violence claims. She got on the stand, and there were differing interpretations as to whether she was believable or not. And ultimately, the jury found that she was not.
Mhm.
I was slightly surprised by the conviction, but she's looking at serious prison time now.
Yeah, up to 30 years, minimum of 11.5. Where do you think that's going to land?
It's always hard to say. A judge, in looking at this, they're going to look to whether she has any prior criminal history. I'm not aware of any.
Yeah.
They're going to look at mitigating circumstances, and so it'll depend in part on whether the judge believed her testimony and her claims of prior domestic violence, and whether that should afford her any leniency. I think it might. I'm expecting something kind of in the middle of that range, lower to middle of that range.
Yeah, like around like 15-ish maybe, and then, maybe it'll be lesser, good behavior, all that.
That'd be
Um,
my take on it too, especially with a charge that is something less than first or second degree murder, which is where she's at.
it was emotional testimony. We watched, every second of it when she was on the stand. And I mean, I saw, some very good attorneys really get teary eyed watching it, and really being, feeling it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm biased or what, because I've dealt with narcissists on a very personal level before. But I don't know. She was kind of coming in and out of credibility for me. There was moments where it's like, okay, I mean, I believe she was a victim of abuse. Without a doubt, I think Doug was a shitty human being. I think he was abusive, mentally abusive. She flat out said he wasn't physically abusive on the stand. But I do believe he had basically the mentality of a 13-year-old boy in terms of his level of control and wanting control over this woman and his outbursts at other men. Just nuts. Um, but I also feel as much as he was an intimidator, she was a manipulator as well. And it seemed to be a very toxic mix.
A totally toxic duo here, and yes, some of the allegations from Ashley really align with our understanding of domestic violence in the legal world. Some lethality factors there, which just increase the likelihoods that something terrible could happen, including alleged abuse of an animal,
Yeah.
our claims that he was going to commit suicide. These are all sort of measures of manipulation and control that Doug allegedly engaged in, but Ashley's hands aren't totally clean either.
What do you think sunk her? What do you think made the jury go, not second degree murder, but we're going to go with manslaughter here?
Yeah, sometimes the jury kind of splits the baby. That they reach a compromise when they can't all agree on a lead charge like second degree murder. She's younger, and that can affect how a person presents on the stand. She's not some professional witness in her
Hmm.
40s or 50s.
Yeah.
She's in her 20s, and so I think that may have influenced her demeanor, and the jury interpreted that a certain way.
How do you think, or how did you take the prosecution of Ashley Benefield? We're going to watch a clip of her trying to act out what took place, and I'm curious to get your take on, I don't know, just I guess the ethics of how this was handled. Let's take a look.
Kind of like I when he got like this, and he was like making like fighting motions. I don't know. I'm not a fighter. I don't know.
Okay.
It was scary.
Did he have his hands in fists?
Not at that point. They were like, I don't know.
Was he coming at you like this?
When he lunged at me, he came very quickly.
Okay, so he lunged. Was his fist up when he
I
lunged?
don't remember.
So you start shooting, and he does what?
He kept coming at me.
Okay, so then you keep shooting again. And he falls down on his back.
His legs went up in the air.
Okay, where do his legs go?
In the air.
How high in the air?
I don't know.
Do they go over his head?
I and his legs went up in the air.
And were you still shooting at the time?
I don't remember.
You can have a seat. So after this incident, you claim that you had swelling to your face, right?
And they take a break. There's two ways to look at that. I mean, you can look at it and go, oh my God, this is a victim of trauma and she is reliving it right now. And it is horrific and it is literally debilitating to her. Or you can look at it as this is someone who's getting called on the carpet for their claim of their story. And they realize what sort of a hole they've dug themselves into. And they're reacting to that. I'm not saying you can't turn that on and act that way. That is a possibility. People can do that. So I think to take that out of the mix completely is not accurate and not responsible. And I'm not trying to blame a victim. I obviously I think she was abused mentally, but I don't necessarily know what to make of her reactions. Let's talk about her reactions, and then we're going to talk about the attorneys and how they were handling that. What's your thoughts on
Yeah,
the reaction?
that was a clip, Tony, in which I thought she appeared pretty darn credible.
Yeah.
What wasn't that wasn't the case during all of her testimony,
No.
in my opinion.
No. Yeah.
But for that one, those emotions, you can see her physically sort of
Yeah.
cowering. You can see her shaking. That you can hear the quiver in her voice. All of that did not seem particularly like rehearsed or staged or anything to me in that instant.
But what about the argument that was made in closing on the part of the prosecution? And this is, I thought, was interesting because we can only tell so much from the screens that we're watching it on. No tears. And when she gets the Kleenex too, not wiping her eyes. I mean, we made the same arguments on Murdaugh. So, I mean, I can't just, somebody's going to go and say, oh, you're picking on her. I'm not. I mean, I am a huge advocate for domestic violence survivors. I myself am one. But I also am a advocate for calling out bullshit when I see it too, or somebody trying to work a system. And I think there's a weird gray area on all of this.
Oh, sure. No, I agree. And I'm not an expert in human crying or anything,
Yeah.
but just in dealing with humans throughout my life and in the legal system, sometimes the tears are flowing. Sometimes for other folks, they are clearly in emotional distress, but they are not having that physical manifestation
Mhm.
of, liquid coming from their eyes.
Sure.
And so it's a fair argument by the prosecution, but I think we've got to take reviewing her demeanor as a whole in its totality.
Yeah.
And because it's missing that piece, that doesn't necessarily take away from the credibility for me.
No, I can hear you. And there was another piece of testimony, and I've watched it several times here now this week on many clips, where she is on the stand and she kind of goes back and forth between being very emotional and then able to just kind of snap out of it and just answer questions as if there's nothing going on. One of those questions and one of those points was asking about the gun. Where was it? In a laundry basket, loaded. She had a little child that ran around this house. She was out to the park with grandma while this was going on. I mean, the argument can be made like that's insanely irresponsible, but also who has a loaded 45 sitting in the laundry basket right there? I don't know that it was premeditated or she's just a very paranoid, impulsive person, considering she has a weapon here, a weapon there, and some people are just gun people like that. Maybe that's the explanation. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, to your question, who has a loaded 45 in a laundry basket? It could be someone who has something in mind that they're going to do to try to get free from an abuser,
Mhm.
or it could be someone who is so traumatized and scared that something could happen during this pivotal event in their relationship that she had to have something nearby.
I agree. I mean, that's why I can see both sides on this damn thing. And I'm arguing both sides in every interview that I'm doing this week because I don't know what to think. I can understand it from hers, because again, I think Doug was a shitty, abusive person. The story of him shooting the gun into the air. Who the fuck shoots a gun into the air in their home to make a point or to get somebody to be quiet unless you're really unhinged and you don't have much self control?
That's extreme behavior, and goes beyond normal relationship woes and the responses we would expect. And then when you add to that not only the firearm piece but also the allegation of animal abuse, the
No.
allegation of suicide threats, it all starts to form the picture that Ashley was trying to paint in terms of her being a battered spouse, and I think does so with some substantiation.
But that's the problem, because a lot of these things are simply her claims of the animal abuse. I mean, yeah, I mean, you want to piss off a lot of people real quick. Tell everybody that he was abusing the animals. But was he? Do we have any vets that said yes, we saw these animals? It's a claim. It's a claim that she made that he was physically abusive in a previous court hearing. She said that he was physically abusing her when she was trying to get full custody of the kids. And the court said we don't have one scintilla of truth. And on the stand there, she says he was never abusive. So it's another example of her story changing or her exaggerating things to a certain extent. And if you take a step back and go, okay, why would she be doing that? You know, maybe because she hasn't been heard. Maybe because she feels that, well, all these other things that are truly important, but they don't seem to hear that. So maybe I have to say something more extreme to be understood and to be heard. That's why she did it. Is it right? No, I mean, not in the eyes of the law. But, is it justified if you're a parent and you're trying to protect your child? I'd make shit up if I absolutely needed to, if I thought that that person was truly a danger. Thank God I've never felt that way. But if you truly feel like you're not being heard and there's a danger there, yeah, I mean, you're a parent. You're going to do what you need to do to protect your child. So again, I can see it on both ways.
Yeah, when you look at it from Ashley's perspective, she's going to say that she has been ignored and dismissed for years in terms of raising these concerns. And when no one's listening to you and you get in dire straits, sometimes you take additional measures to try to be heard. And like you said, maybe that was her embellishing or fabricating, but those discrepancies certainly cost her. And the prosecution brought up in their closing that the defense experts and their evidence is based largely on just her statements,
Yeah.
and that's sometimes not enough to win the day.
Had she not embellished the way that she has, and she didn't have a track record of embellishing, do you think we'd be sitting here at a manslaughter charge? Or I mean, just on its own merit, just look, battered, this is the experience she had. Was it called for at that moment in time? Probably not, but battered spouse and guys shooting a gun into the air, and he's talking about taking people off the face of the earth just because he heard people in the background of a phone call. And I mean, I think it's understandable to understand where she was and why she did pull that trigger, but it's the embellishments that I think sunk her more than anything else.
Tony, I've seen countless times in trials where one side overstates their case and the juries see it. They're not stupid
Yeah.
usually, and they usually can sort of tell and sift through what is true and what is BS to a degree.
Mhm.
And so I think overstating your case is almost always problematic, and that could have been a part of why she was convicted in this case.
Well, especially when you overstate your case and then you start forgetting what you've overstated in the past, because there was a lot of that. There was when she was saying, I don't know on the stand to so many questions. I don't know that she was saying, I don't know to what actually happened. I think it was more so, I don't know what I've said in the past to keep this story going, because there's other incidents of that where he drew the gun at the ceiling. There's a story there where one said one time she said he drew it from his waist, the other he drew it from his boot. Um, I don't know. How do you mix these things up?
I hear you, but could it be a function of a 21-year or excuse me, a woman in her 20s who is on the stand, unfamiliar, well, not totally unfamiliar with the court process, but
Yeah.
not a professional witness or anything, and being peppered with questions. We saw in that clip just how hard nosed that prosecutor was going at her while she is like physically crumbling on the stand,
Yeah.
and so mistakes can be made,
Yeah.
and perhaps that's a part of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point and a good argument. I guess it's one of those things where at the end of the day, only one person truly knows what happened here, and that's her. And well, Doug, and he's gone. But Yeah, jury has come in with their decision. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to follow us wherever you download podcasts, and especially Apple Podcasts, where you can get advanced episode and premium content on our premium channel right there. Also, be sure to follow us on social media so you don't miss any breaking updates on the stories that matter to you most. We're on TikTok, X, Instagram, Facebook. Just search Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski, and you'll find us right there. Again, thanks for watching.